In discussion after discussion today and yesterday and the day before, examples have surfaced which illustrate the importance of good governance. Yesterday, you may have heard Zainab Salbi discuss women in Iraq joining fundamentalist groups because the groups are providing food, jobs, health care, which the government is not. In Judy Woodruff's discussion yesterday with Fazl Hassan Abed and Larry Brilliant, the need for stability was mentioned again and again. And today, many of you may have heard Roshana Zafar say that in Pakistan, she can provide about 325,000 women with microcredit, but 12 million need it. And she said there'd been a missing link in the conference. How can we make governments do these things that we're all talking about?
I spent 10 years as head of the Economic Commission for Africa in Addis Ababa. And at the very outset, that was in the 1995, we did realize that Africa was undergoing a major transition, and the issues of governance were at the centerpiece of all that. And I remember going to the UN and presenting my budget to the Fifth Committee, and I had a program promoting good governance in Africa. And I ran into a lot of flack. Because the view then was that governance was political issues, and good governance was something that was being used to hit upon the head of African governments for democracy and all that. So we had to define governance a bit more broadly as at the core of social and economic development.
The market needs to be governed. There's the governance of networks. That is much more a voluntary set of agreement on a set of rules.
What kind of networks?
Like the philanthropy. $150 billion, 60 corporations. How that money is put or not put into effect is going to have enormous consequences. Third is governance of hierarchy. State is one form of hierarchy, and the state needs to be subject to rules, processes, accountabilities, and freedoms. Because you need to bring this together at the core of governance or citizen. Let me take a metaphor and a proverb and then illustrate it. The metaphor is called Baghdad. You know, what it literally means is the garden of justice. In 1,500 years ago, it was the site of what was called the circle of justice, prior to the advent of Islam. And it said, justice is fundamental to production. Production is fundamental to having an army. An army is central to keeping order. And at the root are the people. In the Near East, the tradition of good governance has been characterized by people or the root, and the government is the tree. And if the root is not firm, the tree withers away. The other is this proverb from Native Americans. It says the earth is not what our ancestors hand over to us, but what we borrow from our children.
What I would add is that, to put it simply, in 20, 30 years ago when we spoke about governance, we understood governance to mean what government did. Today, when we talk about governance, we're also talking about a multi-sectoral approach to addressing the challenges that face humanity. Government on its own cannot address and meet all the challenges that humanity faces. Certainly, as Ashraf points out, NGOs, given the scale at which we operate, cannot actually provide the impact that is necessary, and even enlightened business cannot. So today, the only thing I would add to my definition of governance is that good governance also must include specifically a protection for human rights, a serious commitment to gender equality, because we live in a world today where gender equality we talk about all the time. The reality is there are more women than men on this planet. But if we look at governments that promote good governments in theory, the fraction of women that participate is still highly, highly underrepresented. But the choice for philanthropy and philanthropists is how do you understand how change happens? And today, what you are seeing, if you take an issue like domestic violence, for example, most of the investment of philanthropy will go at the delivery micro level. It's important, providing shelters, providing refuges, providing counseling and so on. However, if tomorrow Father Christmas came and multiplied the budgets of every foundation and every NGO by 5,000% to work in, say, domestic violence, we would go from addressing this number of people that are affected to this number of people if we think that's going to solve the problem. Unless we ask ourselves the question about what is the gap at the middle, what are the policy deficits that leave so many women vulnerable, and unless we start investing in ensuring that we have domestic violence acts, for example, ensuring that the policies that govern the way business, police and other parts of government operate with regard to women who are survivors of violence and so on, we do not get so far.